The self-proclaimed Murima crusader Rigathi Gachagua has well mastered the art of courting controversy and attention. Listen, by now, Rigathi Gachagua is doing anything within his jurisdiction just for him to be arrested. With President William Samoei Ruto having impeached Rigathi Gachagua, millions of Kenyans would have spent their entire lives believing that President William Samoei Ruto was a political genius, but with the recent unfoldings, I kid you not, the son of Jomo, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, was, and I'm saying this with all due respect, simply because President William Samoei Ruto, ever since he ascended to power, he's been making all the political blunders that the son of Jomo never did. Little does President William Samoei Ruto know that by now, one, Rigathi Gachagua has absolutely nothing to lose. Two, Rigathi Gachagua does not want anything from either President William Samoei Ruto or two, his government. Three, Rigathi Gachagua, his only ambition as of the time of this broadcast is nothing short apart from making President William Samoei Ruto a one-term president. Four, Rigathi Gachagua seems not to care of who the next president shall be, but all what he's fighting for is making his former boss, President Ruto, a one-term president. And with the above accounts, I kid you not, I see a string of possibilities that President William Samoei Ruto is also alive as I am of this, and that is why, from where I sit, I honestly see a string of possibilities that in the near future he is likely to test the waters by arresting his former deputy Rigathi Gachagua with the sinister motive of wanting to see what worst Rigathi's supporters and the entire Murima bloc are going to do. However, for President William Samoei Ruto to test Rigathi's influence and what worst his supporters can do, he must first gauge their intensity by arresting, harassing, and intimidating the Murima crusader. That one he must. As history dictates, if you remember pretty well, President Daniel Moi also at some point orchestrated the same by arresting one Kenneth Matiba. And if you ask me, the same script is likely to be repeating in the near future. However, we as the Walalahois, meaning in simple terms, we as the laymans, are currently seated waiting to see of what the repercussions are likely to come from Rigathi's supporters now that the Murima champion would have been arrested. However, one thing that I'm sure of is that if President William Samoei Ruto arrests Rigathi Gachagua, he will automatically elevate his political mileage and dominance extensively from being a Murima champion to be a nationalistic leader. For President William Samoei Ruto to know how to counter Rigathi Gachagua's political strategies, not only for now, but also to tame him in the near future. Once again, I strongly believe he must arrest Rigathi Gachagua, for he knows pretty well it may come with a lot of ramifications, but for him as the president to tame Rigathi, who is building himself politically, I kid you not, he also knows that he must arrest him. And if by any chance this prophecy shall come to pass, then the government would have automatically fallen into Gachagua's grand plan. This being politics, my fellow Kenyan, I kid you not, all attention is always good. And in this context, whether good or bad attention, any attention is usually good. And I'm saying this because if at all President William Samoei Ruto is going to arrest Rigathi Gachagua, then I kid you not, he is also going to propel his political influence, not specifically in the Mount Kenya region, but rather he is going to make him talk of town in the entire country. And having Rigathi Gachagua served as the second in command, he knew pretty well of all the consequences that would have come along with him categorically warning President William Samoei Ruto and his entire government that worst was likely to happen if at all they will dare steal the 2027 general election. In fact, in his own words, he categorically stated that the 2007 post-election violence will be more of a mere Christmas than what is likely to happen if at all he will steal the 2027 general election. But because psychology begs that negative publicity pays more premium than positive attention, Rigathi saw it fit to utter such words despite them being uncouth to many Kenyans. And from where I sit, I know pretty well he uttered such just for him to provoke the government of the day. But with all this at hand, question remains: shall President William Samoei Ruto fall into Gachagua's political trap and put Rigathi under house arrest and torture just for Ruto to test what the Kikuyus and Kenyans at large, those whom are supporting Rigathi Gachagua, can do? But from where I sit, it actually still remains a wait and see situation. Let us just sit, wait and see if at all Ruto is going to arrest his former deputy. And as I come to the penultimate part of this episode, that has just been my opinion. If by any chance you do have a contrary opinion to mine, you can as well just feel free to drop them in the comment section and I'll give them a right of reply. And by any chance, if you've been watching my videos and you've not subscribed, you can as well just consider hitting on the subscribe button. Thank you and may God bless you.